on the sonar screen was the shape of a giant shark. You can see the fin, the face, and for a moment there, everybody on that ship.
She's one of the ocean's top predators, and something still took a bite out of her the size of a dinner table. Divers filming off the coast of Mexico expected a routine encounter, another pass from a shark they already recognized on sight. Instead, she turned in the water and revealed a scar too large and too strange to explain, one that would take years to even begin understanding. Because whatever left that mark didn't just wound an apex predator. It came close to finishing the job, and it did so completely unseen. To understand how, the story has to start a few years earlier, on the water where it happened. The shark called sea batch. In August 2019, shark filmmaker and photographer Jalil Najafov joined a 5-day great white shark trip to Isla Guadalupe, a volcanic island off Mexico's Baja California coast, known for drawing some of the largest great whites in the world. On the second day of the trip, he first met the shark he'd later come to call Sea Batch. She was an adult female, calm around the boat, and clearly used to divers and cages, the shark the crew recognized on sight after years of trips to the island. Her exact size was never confirmed. Najafov, who spent the most time filming her up close, estimated her at 11 feet. What mattered more than her exact length was her condition. She showed no signs of injury when Najafov first encountered her, gliding past the boat with the same unhurried confidence typical of a mature great white, comfortable in these waters. For most of the trip, she was simply one more remarkable animal among the many sharks the crew had come to film. On the last day of the trip, as the boat prepared to leave the island, Sea Batch appeared one final time. She swam past slowly, close enough for the crew to get a clear look at her. Najafov would later describe it as though she'd come back specifically to be seen one more time before they departed. But there was something on her body that caught his eye, something that hadn't been there, or at least hadn't been noticed, during any of their earlier encounters with her. What he saw made him grab his camera and go over the side of the boat immediately, determined to get a closer look before she disappeared for good. A scar. No one could explain. Najafov dropped into the cage and swam toward Sea Batch, camera raised, expecting to capture the same graceful pass he'd filmed a dozen times already that week. Instead, as she turned her body in the water, he saw it clearly for the first time. A massive, circular scar wrapped around her side, stretching from just behind her left pectoral fin all the way back toward her dorsal fin. It wasn't a scratch. It wasn't faint scuffing sharks often picked up from rough encounters with prey or rocks. This was a deep, defined wound, curved in a way that left little doubt about its shape. Najafov had spent years photographing sharks, and he knew immediately that he was looking at something he'd never seen before, at least not on an animal this size. He circled her quickly, trying to capture the wound from every angle he could before she swam out of range. The scar's edges had already healed over, meaning whatever caused it hadn't happened recently, but its size was impossible to ignore. Whatever had left that mark, Sea Batch had survived it, and that alone raised a harder question. What could get close enough to bite an adult great white shark that badly and still let her swim away? Back on the boat, the crew crowded around the camera to look at what Najafov had captured. The conversation that followed grew heated almost immediately, each person offering a different explanation, none of them fully convincing the others. Was it a mating scar? Was it a wound from another shark? Or was it something else entirely, something none of them had a name for yet? Najafov didn't have an answer that day, but he knew the footage was rare enough to matter, and he made sure not to lose it. It would take him years and a much closer look at the wound itself before anyone could say for certain what had actually happened to her. Measuring the impossible. That footage sat untouched for almost 2 years. Najafov had misplaced the memory card holding the sea batch clips shortly after the trip, and it wasn't until July 2021 that he found it again by chance. For the first time, he could study the wound frame by frame instead of relying on memory, and slowing the footage down only made the scar look worse. He started with the basics. How big was this thing actually? Using Seabatch's own body as a scale reference, Najafov measured the bite at roughly 30 inches across, about the width of a bicycle wheel. Photos also showed the damage wrapping underneath her body, which meant the bite wasn't just wide, it was deep enough to reach nearly all the way around her side. That measurement pointed to one thing. Whatever bit her had a mouth large enough to nearly close around her entire body in a single motion. The tooth marks confirmed it. Along the underside of the wound, faint scoring showed where individual teeth had dragged across her skin as the jaws closed shut. And that detail alone ruled out the usual explanations divers reach for first. A boat propeller cuts straight lines, not a curved bite radius. Fishing line and torn netting leave frayed, scattered damage, not a single clean arc shaped like a jaw. Coral leaves scraping, not tooth punctures. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't debris. Something had opened its mouth wide enough to nearly wrap around an adult great white shark, bitten down hard, and then let her go. That left one real question. If a boat or the reef didn't do this, then what animal in these waters was actually capable of it? Ruling out the usual suspects. Once man-made causes were off the table, Najafov turned to the ocean's actual predators, working through the short list of animals large enough to leave a wound like this. He started with a giant squid, and it didn't hold up. Squid don't have teeth arranged in a jaw at all. Their beaks leave puncture wounds and sucker-shaped scarring, nothing close to the smooth, curved bite radius on Seabatch's side. Next came a sperm whale, which failed for a different reason. Sperm whales have long, narrow lower jaws lined with blunt, cone-shaped teeth, built for gripping squid rather than shearing flesh. A bite from one would leave a row of small, rounded punctures in a straight line, not the wide, symmetrical arc found on Seabatch. An orca seemed like the strongest candidate at first, given their size and hunting power. But orca teeth are shaped and arranged differently too. Their bites tend to leave rake marks, long parallel scratches from being dragged across skin, not a single clean bite radius. Najafov had studied orca skulls closely while researching other cases, and the mismatch ruled them out as well. One by one, every major predator in these waters had failed to match the wound. What remained was a single category of animal whose teeth, jaw shape, and bite radius lined up with what was on Seabatch's body, a shark considerably larger than she was. That left a stranger question than the one Najafov started with. If another shark did this, why didn't it finish the job? Mating scar or something worse? The category of shark had already been narrowed down, but one explanation still had to be tested before calling this an attack. Mating. Great white sharks, particularly females, often carry bite scars from mating. Males bite down on a female's body to hold her in place during the act, and those marks are common enough that experienced shark researchers know exactly what they look like. But mating scars follow a pattern. They tend to cluster near the gills or the pectoral fins, areas a male can reach and hold on to. They're usually a collection of smaller, overlapping marks left by repeated bites, not one single, massive wound. But Seabatch's scar didn't fit that profile at all. It wasn't clustered near the gills, and it wasn't a series of smaller overlapping marks. It was one deep, continuous bite, wrapping around her side and underside, exactly the wound a single, forceful strike would leave behind. To confirm his read, Najafov brought the footage to Dr. Tristan Guttridge, a marine biologist and shark researcher he'd worked with on previous expeditions. Guttridge's assessment matched Najafov's own instinct immediately. The location and shape pointed away from mating and toward something far more aggressive. That conclusion changed everything about what the footage was actually showing. It was evidence that something had tried to kill her and very nearly succeeded. The only question left was which shark, in these exact waters, was capable of getting that close to an adult great white and almost winning. A bite from her own kind. Dr. Michael Domeier, president of the Marine Conservation Science Institute and a longtime researcher of great white behavior, reviewed the footage and, naturally, reached the same conclusion as Guttridge. In his assessment, the wound was consistent with an attack from another great white, likely driven by aggression rather than an attempt at mating. This wasn't as far-fetched as it might sound. Great white sharks are known to establish dominance hierarchies around prime hunting grounds, and the largest, most established sharks tend to claim the best territory. Confrontations between rival sharks do happen, particularly when a smaller or less dominant shark strays too close to an area a larger one considers its own. What made Seabatch's case unusual wasn't that a great white had bitten another great white. It was the sheer scale of the bite itself. What she carried was a full, committed bite, delivered with enough force to leave a wound spanning nearly a meter across her body. That force pointed to something more than a territorial nip. Whatever shark did this hadn't just been asserting dominance. It had attacked with the kind of force typically reserved for taking down prey. And Seabatch, by every measure researchers had, was already a fully grown adult great white herself. Which raised the obvious question none of them could avoid any longer. If one great white did this to another, how much bigger would that attacker actually need to be? How big was the attacker? To estimate the attacker's size, researchers used a simple method: scaling the width of the bite against known measurements from other confirmed shark attacks, since jaw size tends to grow in proportion to a shark's overall body length.
The attacking shark must have been very large, possibly 18 or 20.
Applying that method to Seabatch's roughly 30-inch bite radius pointed to an attacker somewhere between 25 and 28 feet long, nearly double Seabatch's own size, and well beyond the confirmed maximum length for a great white shark, generally accepted to top out around 20 feet. That's the difference between an unusually large individual and something pushing past every documented record for the species.
The largest confirmed great white ever filmed measures close to 20 feet from nose to tail.
For comparison, one of the most famous great whites ever filmed, a shark named Deep Blue, is estimated at around 20 feet long and considered one of the largest her species has ever produced. An attacker in the 25 to 28 foot range would dwarf even her. Najafov himself offered a simple explanation that avoided reaching for anything exotic. In his own words, there may be great whites out there larger than Deep Blue that have simply never been seen by humans. Given how little of the open ocean is ever observed up close, that possibility isn't as unlikely as it sounds. Still, a shark measuring nearly 30 feet long would be a record breaker by any measure, official or otherwise. And once a number that large enters the conversation, it isn't long before a very different kind of explanation starts getting floated too. The mega shark theory. Once word of the wound's size spread online, a different crowd took interest, one less concerned with jaw-scaling formulas and more drawn to the possibility of something far stranger swimming in these waters. Independent writer Max Hawthorne, known for his books on marine cryptids and unexplained ocean encounters, published his own analysis of the bite. Using the same scaling method researchers had applied, he arrived at a similar estimate, an attacker somewhere around 28 feet long. But his conclusion went further than the marine biologists were willing to go. He proposed that a shark of this size wasn't necessarily an unusually large great white at all. It could be evidence of an entirely undiscovered species of giant predatory shark, one still uncatalogued by science. Some corners of the internet went even further, floating the idea that Megalodon, the giant prehistoric shark believed extinct for millions of years, might still be alive and responsible for a bite this size. Najafov, the one person who had actually seen Seabatch and photographed the wound firsthand, rejected that idea outright. Asked directly about the Megalodon theory, he was blunt. He didn't believe it, despite it being a popular claim online. His reasoning held up on closer look. The tooth spacing and puncture pattern in the wound matched a modern great white shark, not the wider, more triangular tooth arrangement fossil evidence has established for Megalodon. The bite was enormous, but its shape told a consistent story. A shark. Just an extraordinarily large one, not a prehistoric survivor. A pattern bigger than one shark. To be clear, this isn't about whether Megalodon still swims in today's oceans. The evidence on Seabatch already ruled that out. This is about something else entirely. Whether giant sharks have always done this to each other, long before anyone was around to photograph the results. In 2025, researchers Dr. Stephen Godfrey and Dr. Victor Perez described a rare set of fossilized megalodon teeth bearing something unusual. Deep, serrated gouges that could only have been left by the teeth of another megalodon. The marks matched a specific type of trace fossil called Canathicnus parallelum, a pattern of parallel grooves created when one shark's serrated teeth scraped across another's. This fossil is exceptionally rare. Most shark bite fossils record predation or scavenging on other species. Whale bones marked by feeding, for instance, not evidence of one megalodon biting another. Finding these self-inflicted marks meant something had caused two of the largest predators to ever exist to turn on each other, hard enough to leave permanent damage on teeth built to shear through bone. Researchers proposed a few explanations. Some bites may have happened by accident. Multiple megalodons feeding on the same carcass and clashing jaws in the chaos. Others may have reflected real aggression, territorial disputes, or dominance struggles similar to behavior seen in modern sharks, where males often bite females during mating, and rival sharks bite one another to establish size and status. The exact size of the individual sharks involved in these specific bites couldn't be determined from the damaged teeth alone. But Megalodon as a species is estimated to have reached anywhere from 40 to 65 feet long at full size, making it one of the largest predators to ever exist, regardless of which two individuals were involved in any single confrontation. Millions of years and one extinction event later, Seabatch's scar suggests the exact same instinct never disappeared. It just moved on to whichever species happened to be the biggest shark left in the water. What the scar really proves. After every theory had been tested against the evidence, the conclusion researchers landed on was the one Domeier and Guttridge had both pointed to from the start. Seabatch's wound almost certainly came from another great white shark, one considerably larger than her, likely acting out of aggression rather than any mating behavior or accident. No undiscovered species, no surviving megalodon, just a shark doing to another shark what sharks have apparently always been capable of doing to each other, going back millions of years before Seabatch was ever born. What makes the case remarkable isn't the mystery being solved. It's what the solution actually reveals. Seabatch wasn't young or inexperienced, and she wasn't small by any normal measure. She was a fully grown adult great white, an animal most people would assume had nothing left to fear in these waters. and something still got close enough to nearly kill her. That's the part worth sitting with. Being an apex predator doesn't mean being safe. It just means you're currently the biggest thing most people have noticed. Seabatch survived, but the mark she carries proves size never guarantees safety in these waters. Somewhere out there swims a shark bigger than her, and nobody has photographed it yet. Divers came for a great white and left with proof something even bigger made that bite.